Pepper Joe's canning beans in his bunker deep below. Had a shovel and some gasoline and a stack of crossbows. One sunny day, skies turned dark. A shadow cast a shiver out from the clouds in a circus bark. Creeping clowns make you quiver. It's bird flu, clown zombies, aliens invade from Mars. Prepper Joe's ready in his long johns with a bunker full of jars. Yeah, it's bird flu, clown zombies, aliens. Now ain't that grand in the Ozarks? Preppers, hillbillies got a plan, man, got a plan. Joe grabbed a mask and old gas can and locked up tight his cellar door. Ready himself as any good man for a funky cosmic war. The clowns marched on with red balloon, honking noses, eyes aglow. Bird flu spread from dusk till noon. Joe steeled for the show. It's bird flu, clown zombies, aliens invade from Mars. Prepper Joe's ready in his long johns with a bunker full of jars. Yeah, it's bird flu, clown zombies, aliens. Now ain't that grand in the Ozarks? Preppers, hillbillies got a plan, man, got a plan.
All right, yo, that's my homie Praxis Prepper. Welcome back to the Friday Night Prepper Pre-Party Show. If you like that video, please go over and subscribe to Praxis Prepper and tell him that I sent you. He did that video for us for a live stream that we did. I think it was last summer where we were just talking about like all the UAP stuff that was going on and congressional hearings about that. So unfortunately, if you liked that on my channel as my intro, I have to tell you that that's coming to the end, to an end. I am going to finally try to this weekend film my own little intro. It won't be as good as that, unfortunately. But again, check out Praxis Prepper. Tell him that Prepping with Sarge sent you. He's got an awesome channel, and you can tell. I mean, that's high quality because he actually was a filmmaker. Okay, so, or he still does some actually. So yeah, tell him I sent you over there. All right, we got a couple rules we got to go over here. So looking at the topic and looking at that thumbnail, I can already tell you guys I'm going to have to put a warning out there. This is not intended to be a Team Red Hat versus Team Blue Hair stream. Okay, so if you came here looking for that, you're going to be a little disappointed. What we are going to talk about instead is how do you stay safe in a world where these protests are going to continue to amplify. And I believe at some point they're going to get violent the way that the protests got violent in 2020. Okay, that's what tonight's about. So please don't start any big arguments in chatter. Remember, the person with the boomer with the red hat or the Gen Z with the blue hair, they're really not your enemy. They're just another American. My goal here is to prepare everybody to stay safe. That's where we're going with this tonight. Okay, so no racism, no sexism. Generally try to be kind to each other. If you have a disagreement, articulate your point. Okay, that's how we do it here. But if you're going to be a jerk, and especially if you threaten people or anything like that, mods are going to have to boot you. So please don't do that. We don't usually have a problem here on my channel, but sometimes when we talk about certain topics, there's a chance that things could get a little spicy. Okay, everybody's got the rules? Cool. All right, now tonight's video is sponsored by AppMax. And let me take a couple minutes here to talk about this. Everybody knows what's going on in the world. Everybody sees with these trade wars, it's just really volatile. Do I think that we'll eventually be on the other side of this? Yes. Do I think it's going to benefit most countries in the world? Yes. But right now, things are a little bit turbulent, right? Where do you store your wealth? What are some of the safe havens that you consider? Well, we've talked about this many times on my channel that I believe for myself, and maybe you do as well, about 5 to 10% of your wealth stored in precious metals is a good way to go. Of course, you're going to have to think about how you want to store that. I particularly recommend, because I live in a city that does have a lot of crime, I store mine offsite in a vault. But if you don't, if you live in a very safe countryside and nobody knows that you're into silver and gold, maybe you just build a floor safe. You decide that. But let me show you a couple quick things, and then we're going to go right into the stream here. So now, as you know, over at AppMax, appmax.com, you can find all kinds of different types of precious metals, including silver, like this beautiful Mexican Silver Libertad. I'll show you two Instagram in just a second. All right. Or maybe you're into this beautiful Canadian maple leaf. These are silver, folks. Okay. Or maybe you like the American Eagle, my personal favorite, of course, into a little bit of gold, like this gold eagle. All right. If you've been paying attention to what's going on in the financial markets, gold and silver have had a phenomenal year. Okay. Because a lot of people are looking at what's happening and they're moving their money to gold and silver because many people consider them to be safer havens for storing their wealth. All right. So thank you, AppMax, for sponsoring this video. And let's go ahead and get right into our topic. Thank you so much to everybody who popped into chat. I want to say hi to Scott, Coffee. How are you all doing tonight? Appreciate you. Utah Mike, thank you. Instagram. Again, if you're watching on Instagram, I recommend you come on over to YouTube where I can watch you so you can interact with the chat. Unfortunately, I can't do both. Southern Tier Prepper, thanks for joining. Wayne, it's good to see you. Sunflower, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. And let's see, UAP stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. In other words, UFO. Well, maybe a UFO. It just means it's unidentified. We don't really know what they are. Lazarus Long, so good to see you. All right. Do you have to pay tariff on Canadian and Mexican silver? That's a really good question. I don't know if that's changing with this. I don't have the answer to that, unfortunately. That's a really good question. But if you're worried about it, then stick with the American Eagles if you're in the United States. Again, a lot of people will stack whatever the sovereign coin is for their country. I like to have some diversity. My three favorite coins probably are the Libertad, the American Eagle, and the Canadian Maple Leaf. But I also like the Austrian Philharmonic, Krugerrands, African Krugerrands, Australian koalas. Those are really cool. And the Chinese pandas are also really cool. So you have a lot of different choices there. Or you can go for constitutional coins. Some people call that junk silver. I like to call it constitutional silver. All right. So we know, what do we know? We know that there was protests on April 5th. Turnout was mediocre in a lot of areas. A lot of people are mad at Gen Z. They felt like Gen Z didn't have a big turnout. We know that the protests from the campuses last fall have had some big fallout for a lot of people. There's an article I'm sharing tomorrow morning, actually, about students from Stanford, many of them who occupied buildings are being charged with felonies. Felony is a pretty bad thing to have on your record when you're applying for jobs. And a lot of students that were here on student visas are going, if they broke laws, if they vandalized, if they occupied buildings, or if they were committing hate speech, right, like calling for violence against Jewish people, Jewish students, things like that, they're losing their student visa status and they're being deported. And there is a lot of footage for them to go through on this. So here we go. So YouTube's already going to mess with me. There's a lot of footage for them to go through on this. So just think about that if you're in those positions, right? And I don't know if that was a factor why maybe Gen Z didn't show up in mass numbers to the April 5th protests. I would say based on some stuff that I saw on CNN, of all places, I think people are overestimating or underestimating Gen Z's, how many of them are actually leaning more to moderate or to the right. But after the election, they actually did a lot of polling after the elections. And a lot of Gen Z is actually a little bit more moderate or conservative, especially the men. We can have another discussion about that another night. But I think you shouldn't always necessarily assume that young people are liberal, older people are conservative. It doesn't always work that way. And there's generational things that come into play with this. And it tends to be a pendulum that kind of goes back and forth. So there's a lot at play here. So big question for the next protest, which is going to be April 19th, by the way. There's nationwide protests being planned for April 19th. That means all over the country, and you can go online and you can find the areas where this is going to be, see if it's near a city near you. Will Gen Z show up? Or I guess we're going to find out. Hey, Guns, how are you doing? Appreciate you. Yeah, so the Cincinnati had a grand total. It was a small turnout in a lot of areas. This was not what they were expecting. And yes, sometimes it's professional agitators. I will say, as a city that was dealing with this, as somebody who lives in a city that was dealing with this in 2020, a lot of it was professional agitators who were not from our city. They were bussed in. I saw the buses, and they came in, and these people are paid to stir stuff up. Not all of them. We need to acknowledge that not all people out there are paid protesters, but that is a factor. And when you have paid professional agitators, that's something to be careful with, because that definitely can stir up people into violence, which is where we're going to get to here in just a second. Yeah, so Knoxville was kind of low key as well. What do the protesters pay? I'm looking for a side hustle. I don't know. If you go online, somebody else asked me this question. If you go online and you search for the organizations that are doing this, and then you go a little bit further online and look for like those websites, you should be able to find what you're looking for if you're somebody who's looking for how do I get paid to become a protester. You do what you got to do, all right? And I'm going to say here that I always support people's freedom of speech and your right to peaceful assembly. Keyword there is peaceful assembly. What we saw in 2020 was not peaceful assembly. And it was not, and I don't buy this crap of mostly peaceful. Like, it's either violent or it's not. Okay, so if it's violent, now you've got a riot. That's no longer a protest. And that's what I want people to be careful of. Okay, so what if California Ford 44, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. Hope you're having a good night so far. Sorry, they said they were paid $100. I don't know. That might be a good video for somebody to dig into if somebody else wants to like do some research on that, like what they actually pay these agitators. They'll call them organizers. You know, you make of it what you will. All right, let's go into. So if you are going, let me come at it first from this angle. If you're going to the protest, again, I support your right to peaceful protest. I support your right to free speech. Or if you're a counter protester, as they say, same thing. I support your right to be there just as much as I support the right of the people who are organizing this to be there. What you need to do is be aware and look for signs that things are getting violent, right? So what would that look like? Well, we've done a lot of videos on group psychology in the past and what that looks like. People will start chanting and the rhetoric will get more and more violent. Now, what happens with that is you actually can, if you're in the crowd and you're caught up in this, you can get caught in really legitimately an altered state of consciousness. Just like if you were buzzed on alcohol or marijuana or whatever, you enter this altered state of consciousness. And what happens is there's been a lot of studies on this. You know, I'm not messing around, guys. You know what my background is. There's been a lot of studies on this. And what happens is you get caught up in that moment of fervor and people start to feel like they're anonymous because they're part of this buzzing crowd, right? Like one bee in a beehive. So they feel anonymous. But you got to remember there's cameras everywhere. And then we talked about this as well. There's this thing called broken windows theory, right? Now, I'm not going to go spend my whole stream going into broken windows theory, but what happens, the general idea is if somebody comes along and they do something destructive, breaks a window, for example, and there's not an immediate consequence, that person is not immediately apprehended and taken away in handcuffs, then that group psychology starts to also pick up there's no consequences if we destroy things. Okay, this is what happens, and this is how, and professional agitators are trained on this, on how to stir up a crowd, and then they walk away and they don't get charged. Well, meanwhile, the people who got caught up in this altered state of consciousness ending up with felonies or losing their student visa or whatever. So you need to be smarter than that. And if you see things are getting the things are getting a little bit agitated, people are starting to chant violent things, or somebody breaks something and there's not an immediate consequence, that's when it's time for you to think about exiting. Or don't, but bear the consequence of that. And you need to know that the consequence of this is, I don't think that if it becomes riots, that it's going to be like it was in 2020. I don't think you're going to have catch and release. I think you're going to have a lot. It depends on the city, of course. Some cities are more tolerant of this stuff than others, but a lot of places are not going to tolerate this anymore. And I also think you're also going to have citizens who have had enough after they saw their cities burned in 2020 that are potentially going to be fighting back. So I don't want you to be involved with that. I don't want you to be protesting in the street. We've talked about this before, right? Do your protest. I support you. I support your right to say what's on your mind. I absolutely do. But don't protest in the street. That's stupid. Don't be stupid. Be smarter than that. You're going to end up a road pizza. Somebody's going to run you over and they're going to say, oh, I saw those videos of somebody getting dragged out of their car. I was afraid for my imminent safety and I tried to escape. And unfortunately, in the process of that, I ran over the threat. And they probably will beat that in court. Again, it's going to depend on the city and the jury and whatnot. But why become a road pizza? You die on the road like that, and you're never going to be able to protest again. And you're not going to be a martyr. Nobody remembers the names of these people. They're lost in history. It's a dumb way to die. You know that song, Dumb Ways to Die? Don't be a road pizza. It's stupid. If you're going to protest, do it right. Okay? Y'all with me so far? All right, let's keep it rolling. Yeah, and people are picking up federal charges on some of these cases. 100%. You're right. Uh-oh. Yeah, I can tell YouTube's already messing with me. All right, let me check my chat here. If you guys got any questions, you want to throw anything in. Austrian Stacker, how you doing tonight? Appreciate you. James, I don't know if I caught you before. Thank you for joining. Hey, Austrian Stacker, a road pizza is when you get run over, basically, and you become a road pizza because you're doing something stupid and protesting in the road when you didn't need to do that. And honestly, the attitude in the country in the United States is the driver's probably going to get a sympathetic jury that says, yeah, no wonder the guy was afraid for his life. Look what happened in 2020. People got dragged out of their cars and beaten to death. There's a lot of people, and you only need one person to throw off that jury. There's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to be like, I understand why this person ran over the protester. They were scared. Don't do it. Your life means more than that. Don't protest in the road, folks. How many more times can I emphasize this for you? And Austrian Stacker, by the way, you have a standing invite if you ever want to come on, and we can, if you don't want to show your face, if you ever want to talk about how things are in Europe, you're welcome. You know how to reach me. Just DM me out on Instagram. Okay, brother. So what is the right way to protest? If you want to stay within the law, your organizers need to obtain permits, and there's designated areas, and you don't break laws, and you don't vandalize, and you don't break into buildings, and you don't use it as an excuse to loot, and you don't start fires, and you don't hit cops. That is the right way to protest. That's protected by our Constitution, peaceful assembly and freedom of speech. But when you do any of those things, it's no longer protected, right? Do people understand that? That just because freedom of speech doesn't mean that you can go kick in the door to the iPhone store, and peaceful assembly doesn't mean that you can steal an armload full of Nikes, or you can burn the restaurant of the ethnic group that you don't like. And that's all the crap that we saw in 2020 here in my city. I don't know what you saw in your city, but that's what we saw here. And I was following it because people were live streaming this. I was following it in my city, and the protesters were saying very, very racist stuff about some of these restaurants that they were destroying. Okay. That's not a peaceful protest, folks. And it's not protected. It's not protected. Hulk smash. Exactly, Rural. Exactly. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep the positive energy rolling, folks. All right. So main takeaway there is I want you to stay safe. Okay. So if you're going to the protest, stay on the edges. If you want to go express your beliefs, go ahead and do it. But stay on the edges and be careful. Don't get caught up in something that you're going to regret for the rest of your life. And if you're trying to avoid the protests, then you need to be paying attention to the news, right? We've talked about this before as well, but turn on your phone. Instagram, if you're watching over there, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Come on over to YouTube and join the chat over on YouTube. We got a good little chat going. If you have to drive through the area and you know there's going to be protests in your area, know a couple routes out in and out, and keep a pair of sneakers in your car in case you do have to abandon your car, or some other parts of the world call it tennis shoes, running shoes, basically, in case you need to abandon your car. Have some outfits in your vehicle that blend in with the crowd, right? So I keep a black zipper hoodie in my car. If there's a protest going on, I can't get out of there with my vehicle, I can throw on that black zipper hoodie, zip it up, pull the hoodie up, and start weaving in and out of the crowd until I blend and then get out of there. I don't care about my car. I care about getting home to my wife. That's what matters. Okay. So that's how you should be thinking about this stuff. But we talked about this before. Make sure whatever area you're in, download the app for the emergency alerts. It's usually the news channels for your local area. And then go into your settings on your phone and turn on emergency alerts. And what will happen is if there's riots in your area, most of the time, most cities are going to be like, hey, there's some conflict or whatever, protests, whatever words they're going to use for your area. Stay away from this area. And yeah, drive a different way if you're not trying to be part of that, right? Also remember to, again, like I said, try to blend in if you can, right? Don't be a target if things are getting violent. Don't, if you're a counter protester and you're going to one of these protests and you see that things are getting violent, maybe it's time to get out of there. Maybe some of you are going looking for a fight. I don't support that, but you got to make your decisions however you're going to make it, and you got to live with the consequences of that, which could be that you end up losing your life or making some kind of decision that affects you for the rest of your life, like picking up a felony charge or something. Good idea to, if you're going to these things, travel in groups. There is safety in numbers. Make sure your phone is charged up. Be aware that you might not be able to get out the same route that you came in. So have a little city map with you. Be aware that something could happen, that your phone might no longer work or be accessible. All kinds of ways that can happen. Don't go there looking to argue or provoke people, right? So when you see these protesters and counter protesters standing face to face, spitting in each other's face, well, first of all, there's nothing you're going to say to convince that other person to vote the way that you vote. So all you're doing is you're provoking somebody, and eventually that's going to probably become a fight. Not the best way to do it. In fact, I've talked about this before on my channel. If you can articulate your points of why you believe or vote a certain way, you're much more likely to get somebody who's maybe in the middle to think about it. But if you just scream and tell them, you're stupid because you wear a red hat, or you're stupid because you have a nose ring or whatever, you've lost them right away. They're not going to, so you're just lashing out in anger, but it doesn't change anything. It just provokes the situation, right? If you're at one of these incidents and you see violence or unlawful actions going down, if it's safe to do so, record it. That's evidence. If you have a shop in one of these areas, or your home is one of these areas, turn on your cameras, crank up the sensitivity to it, start recording. If you can't get out of the area and get home, look around. Is there a building that is secure that you can get in, and wait it out until things calm down? Carry a flashlight with you. That's a big one. Most people don't carry a flashlight with them. If you're going out to something at nighttime, you probably should. And no, your phone is not a good flashlight. It's an emergency backup if there's no other flashlight available. Have a good flashlight. If it's really important to you to go express yourself, a lot of these protests start during the day. Go participate during the day. They usually, if they're going to get violent, it's usually after the sun goes down. So think about that. Maybe your goal is, I want to go protest. I want to have my voice heard. I want to be seen. Fine. I don't want to be arrested. I don't want to be involved with acts of violence. Then go during the day, and then when the sun goes down, go home. Just a suggestion, folks. When you're driving through these areas, if you have to go in and out to get to work, lock your doors, right? So many times people are driving around without their doors locked. That's the easiest way for somebody to open the door and pull you out of your car. Watch for big groups, right? If you're driving along and you see 2 blocks up that there's a large group gathering, and that things have been kind of spicy lately, maybe turn there. Try to see if you can find a different way around it. Keep a first aid kit in your car. If you're going to these protests, maybe it's not a bad idea to keep a first aid kit on you, right? You might have to help somebody. Much better than hurting somebody. Let somebody know where you're going and when you're coming home. Somebody that you love and care and knows that, so if there starts being a huge amount of problems, they know where you were and they know when you're supposed to be home. All right. Okay, and then let me pull this up real quick. Bear with me. All right, so how do you stay informed? Actually, let's come back to that. Let me check chat real quick. Yeah, if you get anything of value out of this, folks, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, or if you're new to watching me on Instagram, please consider subscribing or following. Don't forget to check in the description below on YouTube for some discount codes for products that I think you'll like, including gas masks, which might be kind of handy when they throw the tear spray at you. All right. Yeah, you're smart, Austrian Stacker. I don't blame you for that. That sounds lovely, man. That sounds lovely. I agree with that. Wayne, that's not a peaceful protest to block a city to block a road, because somewhere in that traffic that you've now disrupted is a mom who's just trying to get home to her kid who got home from school, and they're used to being home for like 20 minutes till mom gets home. Somewhere in that group is a woman who's trying to get to the hospital to deliver birth. Somewhere in that group of traffic that you've just disrupted is somebody who's trying to get to their dying grandparent that's that's on their deathbed, right? Your rights to peacefully protest do not supersede other people's rights to just having their freedom of movement. It doesn't. You don't have a right to block people from accessing a hospital or getting home or getting to their dying loved one. You just don't. Sorry. And it's a stupid way to protest. How many times do I have to say this? You don't make anybody supportive of your cause when you block a highway or a road. You actually make people think the opposite of like, I can't stand these people now. I need to get those t-shirts made up, right? Like, don't be stupid. Don't be a road pizza. Don't become a road pizza. People have been asking that. Peacefully tap the like button, please. Thank you. Being a provocator gets eyes on you. Yes. And usually those people do get caught on the cameras, which is what's happened with some of these students that are now being deported. These were people, they weren't necessarily, some of them professionally trained, but they were agitators nonetheless, and they were leaders of these groups, and now they're bearing the consequence of that. Ice cream sounds lovely right now. No protests in Tasmania. I love that, Jonesy. Good for you. Hey, hey, Howie. It's good to see you. Appreciate you. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you, and hope you're having a great Friday. Prepper for the ages. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you. And yeah, our prayers go with you. I know you're dealing with one of the heaviest things that a person's going to have to deal with in their life. So I want you to know that myself and many other people are praying for you right now. Hey, Vanessa Kitties. Good to see you. All right, cool. Caught up on chat. All right, this is the last part. And then you guys know, hey, Black Guns and Gardens, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. This is the last part. And then you guys know I always end with something positive. So stay tuned for that, okay? All right. So what are some other tools and methods for staying updated on the protests? Social media platforms. If you know which groups to follow, then I think what's one of them called? 5051, I think, is one of the groups. Undivisible is another one of the protest groups, I think. Undivisible. News apps, that's what I was saying earlier. Download not just the national ones, but download the news apps for your area, and then go into your settings and turn on emergency alerts. Apparently there's something called Crowd Voice. I've never been on it. Maybe you guys know what that is. Local government websites. That's actually good. I'm glad I pulled that up. So believe it or not, Twitter X, if you follow your local government websites on Twitter X, a lot of times they'll put out information like that, safety information. Reddit groups, navigation apps. Actually, Waze is a great suggestion. So Waze will tell you if there's disrupted traffic in an area. It's good to know if it's showing like traffic is at a standstill in an area, and you know there's protests that day. Guess what? It might be because somebody's blocking the road and has now become a road pizza. Activist groups, of course, radio stations will often give you this information as well. Okay, cool. Good stuff. So summarizing with the takeaways here. Stay informed. If you're going to exercise your right to protest, be safe. Don't do stupid things. Don't get violent. don't break the law. If you do, you bear the consequences of that. If you're a counter protester, same thing applies. And don't go there and getting in somebody's face, spitting and thinking that you're going home. You're probably going home in either handcuffs or the hospital, or it's going to be some kind of bad outcome. You don't need to do that. If you want to go and counter protest, go and counter protest, but there's a way to do it without starting a fight. Police scanner apps is a good suggestion, James. They don't work in all cities. A lot of places. Did Praxis just come in? Oh, Praxis. Hey, good to see you. Appreciate you. Yeah, so we've been putting up your video there in at the beginning and trying to get people to go over and check out your channel. So everybody loves that alien clown video. Thank you for doing that. Don't move towards the front of the line and up in front where where people are with the megaphones and stuff like that. Because if things get kinetic, you're stuck in that crowd. It's be on the outside edges if you're not wanting to, if you're trying to peacefully protest, right? Keep sneakers in your car or tennis shoes if you're from other countries that don't know what sneakers are. Think about other routes in and out of the area, right? Biggest thing here is I really don't care what your political beliefs are. Go vote however you vote. I care about people and I want you to stay safe. Okay. And I don't want to see anybody become, say it with me, crowd, road pizza. Good. You got it. All right. So then let's end with something positive here. So this one, I'm going to send this one out to, if you're not Christian, it's okay. So I'm going to use the word devil here. But if you're not Christian and if you want to just think about it as temptation instead of the devil, that's fine. Don't lose the message because you're not of the same beliefs as me. Okay. So a couple of years ago, Will Smith, and this is kind of off topic from what we're talking about. A couple of years ago, Will Smith had that incident at the awards ceremony where he went up and he slapped Chris Rock upside the face. And I should know that happened. And he was nominated for an award that night, right? And one of the things that Will Smith said after that was, when you're at your highest moment is when the devil comes for you, right? Now, again, if you're not Christian, just think temptation, okay? So when you're at that highest moment and you think I'm invincible or I'm great or whatever way you want to conceptualize that, that's when you've let your guard down about your humility, right? Pride is not a bad thing, but pride can be extreme. And when we're at that highest level, that's when we're prone to the devil sneaking in and thinking and getting into that little part of our brain. As a psychologist, I might call that the id, right? Or, it's just that part of the brain that doesn't really think things through. And boom. And in a second, your life can change. And that one slap actually changed the trajectory of Will Smith's life. I think people are forgiving him. I think we're on the other side of this for him, but he's had a couple of years where he really couldn't get cast in anything. Isn't he banned from award shows because of this? He lost the respect of a lot of fans because of one slap. Now, I feel like our reaction to this, I say we as a consensus as a whole, was probably a little over the top. Should he have gotten violent? No, but it was a slap. He didn't shank him, right? Like I think that the amount of hatred that Will got for this, I thought was a little bit over the top. But in any event, Will's done his time on the shame chair, and I would like to see the world grant a little bit of grace and forgiveness. That I think he's learned his lesson from this. Now, the other side of this is when you're at your weakest moment. Okay, now listen to me. This is really important. When you're at your lowest moment, when you're most sad, when you're most anxious, when you're most angry, that's also when the devil comes for you. And that's when you are also, if you're not Christian, that's when you're prone to temptation to maybe do something that you wouldn't normally do. Okay? So you have to be strong in your character, know what you stand for, and act accordingly. Okay? You guys should understand what I'm saying here. I hope that everybody gets the message. And again, it's not specific to Christians. I'm using that metaphor because that's how Will Smith presented it. All right, folks, I really appreciate you. And thank you for posting that up. So practice prepping and practice homesteading. Make sure you check that out. really appreciate that you did that video for us. Awesome stuff. Folks, I really appreciate everybody for joining me on this Friday night. I hope you had some fun here and got some knowledge. I hope I made you laugh a little bit. Hope I made you think. And if you're new to the channel, again, consider subscribing, hitting that thumbs up, checking out the description down below on YouTube for discount codes that I think you'll like. Thank you so much to Instagram for hanging in there with me as well. Remember, I always go live, and if I'm live on YouTube as well, I can't watch both chats, so I recommend you watch over on YouTube on Friday nights. All right, but thank you so much, Instagram, for those of you who've been hanging out over there. It was the way. Well, yeah, that's a whole. You're right, Wayne. That's probably a whole nother piece of it that I could get into at a different point. But yeah, there was some antagonizing going on there too, wasn't there? Right? Like we could look at it from that angle that that provocation was coming partly from his wife. I agree. All right, folks. I hope you have a great weekend. Please take care of yourself. Do something fun. Do something good for yourself, and and spend some time with your family if you've got them. And if you don't, remember, you can choose your family to be your friends as well. All right. Keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge. Thank you, everybody.